Hello, you are on the Ruslan Belov channel. So Trump, it's over. Now Trump has become Donald Biden. Because yesterday, he declared that everything Putin says and proposes regarding Ukraine is a pile of crap. He says he'll impose sanctions. Today, a bill will be introduced in Congress. Those same terrifying and horrible sanctions. So that's it. No backroom deal between Russia and the US. The fighting on the front lines continues, and we will continue analyzing the situation. Let's move to the map. All right, friends, those of you who've been watching me for a while know I always speak objectively. If there are problems, I talk about them. If it's difficult somewhere, I say it directly. And right now, things are tough for the Russian side in the Sumy region. The Ukrainian armed forces have brought in new forces here, and Sursky is trying to launch a new counter-offensive. They've pulled in around one brigade, which was previously stationed in the Kherson region. That's because the line of contact there is static, and it's clear no one's crossing to the other side. So they pulled those troops out and sent them here, brought in drones, and now they're trying to attack. Sursky's new counter-offensive is already showing some results. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But first, a few words about the situation on the eastern flank of Myrnohrad. The day before yesterday, Russian troops made a 9-kilometer push here. I talked about it in yesterday's report. It was a major success for Russian forces, but in Sumy region, the success went to the Ukrainian side. Yesterday, they launched a powerful attack on our positions north of Kondrativka. Russian forces couldn't hold, and the Ukrainian armed forces managed to advance not just across the fields, but also entered the northern part of Kondrativka. They moved in, and Russian troops retreated accordingly. So what does this mean? It means the Ukrainian armed forces have managed to secure a foothold in the northern part of Kondrativka. Russian artillery immediately started striking them. Here's footage of FAB bombs hitting Ukrainian positions in Kondrativka. In total, the Ukrainian advance amounted to 2.5 kilometers. The area they recaptured is 2.1 square kilometers. But you know it's not even about the numbers. The issue is something else. If you look at the map, you'll see the new front-line configuration. Kondrativka is now surrounded by the UAF from 3 sides, west, south, and north. So the Russian garrison there is now in operational encirclement, and if we don't manage to quickly counterattack and reclaim the lost position, I think we'll have to retreat from Kondrativka entirely. Because being surrounded by the UAF on all sides is simply pointless. The Russian army will suffer heavy losses under constant fire without proper logistics. And logistics here are already broken, as all the supply routes are under fire. So either we push the UAF out or retreat ourselves. That's the situation now, caused by a missed strike. Unfortunately, this isn't the only area where the UAF achieved success. There's another one I'll tell you about now. It's here, between Alexivka and Novonikolaevka. They managed to slip into the tree lines and, under cover of vegetation, advance 1,100 meters. They also tried to break into Novonikolaevka village, but Russian troops spotted them in time and struck back effectively. So they're now stuck in the tree lines, and we're targeting them with air-dropped munitions. Still, this is far from good news. They will continue to build up strength there and apply constant pressure on the Russian garrison in Novonikolaevka, from both the south and the west. So the situation here is also rather difficult. Perhaps that's why yesterday Sursky started talking big. He claimed they're holding Kursk region, holding Belgorod region, and advancing everywhere with success. But what exactly they're holding in Kursk, I don't know. Even near Tyotkino, we pushed them out of the forest lines. They're now only present beyond the river. And that's it. In Belgorod region, they're not present at all. The Russian army kicked them out of Popovka and Demidovka, and that was the end of it. They haven't even tried to get back in. In fact, we pushed them further into Sumy region. So they're not on the Russian side of the border. Our forces are on the Ukrainian side. So all Sursky's triumphant claims are complete nonsense. Yes, in the past 24 hours, they had a tactical success in the Sumy region. But that's a drop in the ocean compared to our daily advances across dozens of square kilometers. Now let's move on to Russian advances. Yesterday, Russian forces achieved success in the Konstantinovka direction near Belaya Gora. Take a look, we managed to push forward 1.1 kilometers across a relatively wide front. And most importantly, Russian troops not only reached the outskirts of Belaya Gora, but also entered and, crucially, secured a foothold in the village. The advance within the village itself was about 430 meters. Why is this important? Because there are two key defensive nodes separating Russian forces from Konstantinovka: Belaya Gora and Alexandra Shultin. And now, battles for one of these nodes have already begun. At the same time, we're pushing from the northeast to eventually approach the city from both directions, toward roughly the same target point. But to be fair, the situation here remains unclear. The Russian Ministry of Defense has already stated that the village of Predtekine is under our control. However, we haven't yet seen any verified footage from the area, even though 5 days have passed since the announcement. 5 days should have been enough time to see some evidence. That's why I'm skeptical. Until footage appears, I'll assume the village is not under our control. That means the distance from Stupochki to Konstantinovka is 5 kilometers, and from Belaya Gora, 9 kilometers. I think the objective to reach the city will be achieved by September. Meanwhile, Russian forces are also gradually pressing on the UAF from the south. The day before yesterday, they advanced 350 meters. Over the past 24 hours, they improved their positions by another 160 meters. Progress is slow, yes, but the important thing is that it continues. Special attention now is on Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad. Over the past week, the Ukrainian front line has collapsed across a 60-square-kilometer area. And as I mentioned at the beginning, fighting is now underway in the last Ukrainian stronghold, Novoekonomichne. Around 15% of the settlement is already under full and undisputed Russian control. Battles are also ongoing in the village of Razino, which is to the north of Novoekonomichne. Despite being a small village, the fighting there is extremely fierce, because if the UAF lose Razino, then the northern approach to Novoekonomichne becomes exposed. And of course, Russian troops will immediately move in there. And that is exactly their goal: to apply pressure from both directions, from the south and the north, because otherwise it will be impossible to break Ukrainian resistance in the settlement. On the western flank of Pokrovsk, things remain unchanged for now. There, the UAF has everything fortified, and although daily attempts are made, breaking through the Ukrainian defense and achieving a rapid breakthrough, like the Russian army has done, for example, on the eastern flank of Mirnohrad, has not been possible. Shifting to the south, fighting is currently taking place in the village of Tolstoy. In addition, the Russian army is trying to encircle the town of Mirny. According to reports from the ground, the UAF is experiencing serious problems in that area. So within the next day or two, we expect new confirmations of success. That's all I have for now regarding the situation at the front. Now a few words about politics. Trump has once again made new contradictory statements. This time, he lashed out at Russia again. "I take the idea of sanctions against Russia very seriously," declared the US president. He said he was dissatisfied with Putin. "Putin is throwing a pile of dirt at us. It sounds nice, but in practice, it's meaningless," he noted. The war in Ukraine would have lasted 3 to 4 days, but the Ukrainians had very good weaponry. "We gave the Ukrainians the best weapons ever created," Trump also stated. The US president admitted that the task of resolving the conflict in Ukraine turned out to be more difficult than he expected. At the same time, former Speaker of the US House of Representatives, Newt Gingrich, announced that the bill on sanctions against Russia would be introduced in Congress today, July 9th. Trump also told reporters that all countries within BRICS will have to pay a 10% tariff on trade with the US. He accused BRICS of pursuing an anti-American policy. They will have to pay 10% if they are part of BRICS, because BRICS was created to harm us. It was designed to undermine the dollar and remove it from its position as the global standard. And fine, if they want to play that game, I can play that game too. So any BRICS country will be subject to a 10% tariff. Dmitry Medvedev made a statement, quoting, "The American is once again riding his favorite political swings. I'm pleased with my talk with Putin. I'm disappointed with my talk with Putin. We're not supplying new weapons to Ukraine. We are going to supply lots of weapons to Ukraine for defense. How should we treat this? Just like before, the way the Russian armed forces treat it. The way the Supreme Commander-in-Chief treats it? Not at all, just keep working toward our goals. The EU is on a war footing. Europe's largest port is urgently preparing for war with Russia. The port of Rotterdam, the largest in Europe, has begun a large-scale conversion for NATO needs and a potential conflict with Russia, according to the Financial Times. Berths have already been reserved for the regular unloading of US, British and Canadian warships. Civilian shipments are being prepared for emergency redirection. Port Director Boudewijn Siemens stated that for the first time since the Cold War, the port is working in close coordination with Antwerp and the Dutch Ministry of Defense to receive heavy military equipment. Preparations are underway for exercises and logistics are being strengthened. Not every terminal is capable of receiving armored vehicles and equipment. We are ready to redistribute military flows, Siemens noted. At the request of the Dutch Ministry of Defense, the port is now required to receive up to 5 military shipments per year, with vessels docked for several weeks. Annual amphibious landing exercises are also planned. Additionally, the EU has been urged to create strategic reserves of oil, copper, lithium, graphite, medicine and water to be stored directly in port logistics zones. In addition to that, it is reported that the EU is seeking $19 billion for Ukraine. Budget shortfalls are forcing Brussels to take extreme measures. Brussels is actively looking for ways to cover Ukraine's $19 billion budget deficit for next year, including through advance loans from the G7, Financial Times reports. Concerns about next year are growing, and many stakeholders are being forced to recalculate their spending. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay informed, stay sharp, and I'll see you in the next update. Take care.